What?
Subscribe.
Subscribe. We'll highlight all that. Don't you worry.
Just
But of
saying,
course,
you gotta remind people.
Subscribe right now.
Subscribe.
subscribe. Of course.
Philadelphia, baby, you're gonna love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Steve, that offer
I'm
was
sorry.
insulting for the audience out there. Steve said he wants to go take a lesson from someone, and I said to him, and I didn't say this to be arrogant, but I was like, I'm probably the best instructor like at your disposal.
Yeah.
He was like, well, you're not here. And I said, Steve, instead of paying someone like basically $100 for an hour,
At least.
Venmo me $20. We'll FaceTime once a week for an hour, and we'll go over everything you have to do.
I don't want to pay you. You're my
That's
friend.
a great deal, dude. Like for golf
You don't
lessons?
wanna-
You kidding me?
Ethan, thank you, Ethan. See, Ethan, this is why Ethan's going to take your place one day on this show.
I invented the show.
Dude, you're like, I'm literally giving you the fucking deal of a lifetime right now.
All right, I will heartfully consider your offer.
No, you won't. You're gonna be like,
That shouldn't even have to be considered. That's like a great offer.
dude, I'm literally. You're paying me $20 for an hour.
Ethan, would you charge your friends?
Yeah, if I'm a professional golfer, yeah, probably.
Shut up.
I mean, my brother charges me to like fix my car sometimes, and he's a mechanic, so
Yeah, there you go.
All right, that's like a bona fide service that's like completely necessary.
yeah, but that's like a thing on top that he doesn't have to be doing. It's an hour of your
I'm a busy guy, Steve.
I don't need an hour. All I want is I send you a video and say, hey, like, how can I get my like swing playing a little better, and like just like give me a tip. I know that I can certainly use a lesson, but
like you have to be consistent with lessons in golf. Like if you don't, you're not gonna.
Personally, you know what? I would pay you for an hour lesson. I'd pay you $20, but I would rather have you in person with me to go over it.
Yeah, you're gonna fly out every week.
No.
Imagine that'd be
when he's here playing in the summer, and he's got a possible like off day.
I get a day off every week.
Exactly. So like we can hang out. We can do something
together. It's the best place to learn, right?
You see, Ethan, this is what's going to happen, okay? I'm going to end up giving this guy a lesson on my day off, and he's going to look at me at the end of the lesson. He's going to be like, hey, I know I said I'd pay you $20, but why don't I buy you lunch, which is basically
the best part is that's exactly what I would do, but I am not a freeloader like that.
Or you guys just like bet on a round and like you get a bunch of handy like strokes and stuff.
You want to laugh? We actually have done that before, and Ben kicks my ass every time.
I shot 71, I think, and Steve shot like 98, and I gave him 18 shots. He wanted 16, and I was like, Steve, no, I'm a professional. I'm going to give you 18. And he was like, no, I don't want 18. Yeah. I want 16. Like, he's like the worst fucking negotiator ever.
No, I want, because technically, my handicap was like a 16 at the time. You're a scrap, so you're at a 0. Unless you're playing to a plus.
No, that's only a stroke a hole. That's not that much.
Yeah, no. He was getting a stroke a hole with how he wanted to do it, and I was like, Steve, no, like let me just give you 18. All right, like let's just like do a stroke a hole, like it's a for fun round, and it just wasn't even close.
Although I think my friends like 2 strokes a hole. They're like
Ben might have. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, you shot a 71, but you had like 6 or 7 birdies.
I had
as many bogeys.
I had 6 birdies and an eagle, and then 8 bogeys. Because I had to watch this display of Steve. You know what, Ethan? You've never seen this video. I'm gonna send it in the group chat. Steve absolutely just mollywopped a tree. Like,
there is nothing that Ben likes more as a professional golfer who carries his driver over 310 yards. There is nothing more on earth than Ben Pirro likes more in this entire world than watching people take terrible shots or hit trees. The doink off of a tree, while it is the funniest thing ever, Ben's like, you suck. And I'm like, I can't even say you fucking suck.
No. I didn't say that you sucked. I just couldn't stop laughing because in the video, it's like he takes out this hybrid and he's in the rough, and I'm standing there. I'm sitting in the cart and I'm looking at him, and I'm just like, where does he think he's going to go?
I thought I could play a baby fade around the tree.
Baby fade. The tree was enormous. It was a mature tree. It was like 40 years old. You couldn't go. You couldn't. You just shot through.
Thought I could have hit a baby fade and like pull hooked it a little bit, and yeah.
Pull hooked it. That's
the worst part too. It's probably the best shot I've ever had. It just happens to be a 40-foot oak tree right in front of me. All 20 feet.
Ethan, just the sound that this ball made, it was absolutely priceless. And then Steve just goes, where'd it go? And I'm like,
hold on. I got to see if I have this video. I know I do somewhere. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Hold on. Wait, hold on.
Play it on the pod?
Hold on.
If you can play it on the pod, just play it here. It's Ethan.
Oh, do I not have it? Shit. I have a couple of videos from that day. I don't think I have that one on me.
Do you have
what?
Do you have it in the group chat?
It's probably actually I have the tee shot from that hole, and it was a really good tee shot. You were like, oh, might be your best shot of the day.
It was such a good tee shot. It left hybrid in the trees. Basically drew a green, but it was a good tee shot.
Ben, you're like severely breaking up right now.
I don't know.
We're gonna go to break. We'll see if we can get you reconnected on the other side. We'll try and get you going because you're breaking up like you're in like Guam.
Get in the Hole is brought to you by PHI Apparel Company, our incredible merch partners. PHI Apparel Co. provides unique designs and high-quality clothing from t-shirts to hoodies for every golfer around. With their original designs for all, there's no doubt you'll stand out on the course, the driving range, or at the 19th hole. Go to phiapparel.co and use code UNDERGROUND at checkout for 10% off any order. That's code UNDERGROUND at phiapparel.co and grab exclusive Get in the Hole podcast merch and support your favorite golfers.
Hello and welcome in to Get in the Hole live from the Underground, a part of Underground Sports Philadelphia's podcast network, streaming live on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you can get a hold of me, Ben, and Ethan, bringing you all the news, analysis, and betting tips from across the golfing world, including the PGA, LPGA, Corn Ferry, and Live Golf tours. Proudly presented by some of the best sponsors in the biz, including the guys over at Tomahawk Shades. You know who they are. You know that they are giving you the best small batch eyewear in the game, rep by some of the biggest names in sports, including Jazz Chisholm, Kyle Harrison, Paige Baranek. Tomahawk Shades is keeping you fly from the first hole to the 18th green and beyond, even now on the slopes with their new winter line. All you Northeasterners and Midwesterners, get out there, get your goggles for the slopes on TomahawkShades.com or the Tomahawk Shades app, and be sure to browse their selection of sunglasses, blue plus glasses, and prescription lenses, and use code USP for 25% off your next order at TomahawkShades.com or the Tomahawk Shades app, available on the App Store or Google Play Store. Joining me on another great edition of Get in the Hole, of course, Ethan up in the corner, and my brawny, beautiful co-host, Ben Pirro, who's now lost. Ethan's taking the spot from Ben today. So, as we wait for Ben to arrive with hopefully a video of me trouncing a 40-foot oak tree, Which, by the way, like going through my phone, I'm seeing all the videos of us. Last April, Ben and I went to the Mets game, and it was dollar dog night, and we did the nine hot dogs, 9 innings challenge.
Yeah,
abysmal effort. Actually, a abysmal effort. It was like the worst thing in the world. But I know Ben didn't watch it, but well, so hopefully you did. The TGL's opening weekend occurred on Tuesday after we had recorded on Monday, and got some really cool insight into what to expect from the TGL following their first round matchup between the New York Golf Club and the Bay Golf Club based out of San Francisco. Ethan, did you get a chance to watch it at all?
Unfortunately, I was at the trampoline park.
The trampoline park, getting sick and cleaning the balls for the first time in 3 months.
Yeah, pretty much. That was my
fucking ball pit, man.
Nasty.
Don't go in the ball pit. So I guess no one watched but me, but it was actually really cool because I went to work the next day, and my coworkers, a lot of them are not really golf guys. One of them is a big golfer. A couple of them are like casual, go to the course, have a few beers. They're playing with their grandpa set from 30 years ago kind of guys. So I go to work, and my coworker Eddie comes up to me and he goes, like this TGL stuff, man, like it's legit. And I'm like, oh, like what'd you think? And he goes, like I don't watch the PGA Tour on weekends. I'm like, honestly, like no one really does unless you're like a real junkie. Like even me, as somebody who covers the sport, I don't watch it religiously. I think watching pro golf is like watching paint dry just because it's so long and it's so tiresome. The only times I'll ever watch is majors because I'm usually betting on it. But he was like, yeah, I was locked in for all 2 hours. I was really into the technology. I loved how there was like a good mix between like players communicating like on the greens and the commentary. They obviously interviewed Tiger Woods. It was huge. So the opening week seemed to be a rousing success. It drew in about 990,000 viewers, which actually outpaced by a decent chunk the predecessing TV show that happened on ESPN prior, which was the Pitt Duke game. Cooper flagged out the 30 burger, and they only got about like 700,000 viewers. So the fact that it's a largely ESPN plus broadcast, and we're getting 990,000 people to tune in to the TGL, as rates for the pro golf game are just dipping at an enormous clip. Something like, I think the Century this past weekend only brought in like 400,000 viewers. Compare that to 2 years ago when John Rahm and Cam Smith faced off, and they were also breaking the low scoring record back then. That had about 730,000 views on a Sunday. It's hard to compare a Tuesday versus a Sunday, and you know that as someone who's into film and television, how like Nielsen stats work and all that. But it really does seem to me that the TGL is here to stay, and it's going to be a really good source of golf in a different kind of avenue. Ben and I were debating this, and I want to get your take on this. We're talking about how while like the TGL was kind of created because of LIVGolf and the idea of trying to get more faces to watch PGA talent rather than guys going to LIV, or even as a way to sign guys on to prevent them from going to LIV, didn't necessarily work because Tyrrell Hatton and John Rahm had TGL spots and then they left. But I think what actually came out of this, obviously with like LIV and the PGA Tour kind of trying to get into bed now with the PIF, the TGL has now actually provided us a new methodology of how to watch golf, and it's a fun new way of doing it because now broadcasts are cut to 2 hours. You get to kind of see golfers not be so serious. I feel like guys are playing 4.5 hour rounds, and you're trying to win. You're trying to make $3 million, and in reality, these guys are playing on the TGL probably not for a lot of money, and it's just for a fun thing to do in their off time because they can just do it. So I think like the fact that people are leaning into tech, the people are leaning into the idea of golfers having more fun. And prior to this, they only really got to see them on Full Swing, if they ever even watched that on Netflix. So, like, what do you think in terms of a product? Granted, you didn't watch it, but because it's golf in a new way, do you think it's something that can stick around for a lot longer than people are thinking?
Yeah, I think that it's actually going to do great because if you think about it with other sports, like baseball, for example, they're constantly trying to like shorten the game because people only have like short attention spans now.
Mm-hmm.
But also like it shows the social aspect of it, which people love, like from like the documentaries like Full Swing. People like getting to know the players more, and I think it gives like a good opportunity for them to be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like I love how we're expanding on like, and I think a great example of this is somebody like LIVGolf, right? Someone who you haven't, honestly, prior to TGL, haven't really heard him even speak and like actually like talk to people. Oh, there's Ben. Hold on, wait, Ben is somewhere. Did we lose him? Oh, Ben's in the corner, and now Ben's back. Hi, Ben.
Yeah, I was just kind of sitting here for like 5 minutes, just waiting for you to let me in. Yeah.
Your screen never popped up, and I still think your internet is kind of hitting the wall. We're reviewing the.
I can see him. I don't know. I think I have control over it for some reason.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh.
I can't switch around the screen or anything, but I saw him down there. I thought you were gonna.
Oh, I had only like just seen him as of like 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, because I just added him to the stage because I saw him down there.
Honestly, didn't even realize that. So apologies on that. Ben, we're talking about the opening weekend of TGL and understanding that I personally think, and Ethan agrees, because we're getting to see players kind of in a new light, having more fun, not necessarily playing for a ton of money like you usually see them on a Sunday or Saturday, trying to fight for $3 million. It's a new way of us getting to understand the golfer and see them like in a new light. I just mentioned before you joined on, like LIVGolf hadn't really ever even heard him speak until they interviewed him like mic'd up on the green at TGL, and I'm like, wow, like it's really interesting to see this guy who talk about a monumental jump in his career, went from graduating college, jumped right to the pros, won the RSM, was in a Ryder Cup, runner-up at the Masters, and all of this happening in 18 months. And yet, like, you never really, like, talked to the guy. You always see him in one facade, and I feel like it's really interesting to see, like, Shane Lowry laughing with Oberg, or laughing with like Wyndham Clark, or Xander Schauffele talking strategy with Ricky Fowler. I think all those like small aspects I think were really interesting, and it really made for a really good piece. So Ben, what do you think in terms of TGL being here to stay and being able to provide us something that we haven't really seen outside of something like Full Swing, where you can actually see golfers and their personality come to light?
Well, okay. First of all, because I am very honest, I was wrong about the TGL. I'll be the first to admit it. I thought it was going to be a joke. I didn't think it was going to be at all. And clearly I was wrong based on the viewership, and based on what people are saying about it. I think it was initially, for me, it was hard to see how it was going to work. Initially, I thought that this was just kind of a gimmick and almost a little bit like a copycat format of Live to make golf louder, more fun, see more personality with players. And to be honest, they really hit the nail on the head. I like that I like that the players are more engaging. You're able to see more of a fun side of them. You're able to see them banter a little bit. I do believe that there is a future for it. I don't know how long it's going to last. And they are playing for a little bit of money. That was part of the deal. They did sign contracts, and they're part of teams and everything. It's nothing compared to Live, obviously. Nothing really is when you look at the monetary value. But I think this draws in a completely different type of golf fan.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is much more of the casual fan who is into something that's a little more fast-paced, because you have the shot clock now, something that's more interactive, entertaining. For me, and I think golf has tried to do this with on-course interviews. They've tried to do on-course interviews, kind of like baseball's done that in the middle of games. Me personally, as a player, I would literally just say, get that mic away from me. I'm not going to talk to you right now. But if I was on tour, TGL, I think it's a little bit different. And I think you can see it's more of a for fun atmosphere. And I think the teams are interesting as well. It's roughly 2 hours, which I think is pretty good. And so that's really 40%. That's 60% less time. compared to that of a typical PGA Tour round.
Yeah.
So I do think that there is a future. Obviously, there are NFL owners that are interested. They attended the first week of it, so that's something. There was definitely a lot of hype around it. We'll see where it goes. And because initially, like I said, I thought that this was just kind of like a way to kind of golf more interesting, to get people to stop talking about LIV and to kind of shift the focus to the tour. And I do think part of that is true, because it was once LIV became a real thing, it was obviously a real threat. They came out with this, and so that's undeniable. But at the end of the day, the product, from what I read, from what I heard, from what people said, especially when it was from people who are not really big golfers, and are more into more exciting sports, I think that they did a great job. I think that they were able to channel an audience that the PGA Tour hasn't been able to channel since Tiger was truly relevant.
Yeah, no, I think what's fascinating, and I mentioned this as you were away. 3 of my coworkers are very casual golf fans. Were like, I was locked into this. I love the technology. I loved the communication of players. I obviously had the interview with Tiger, but also had that on course interview aspect. Like you said, I remember they did a mic'd up with Max Homa as he was walking up 17 or 18 the one year he won the Farmers 2 or 3 years ago. I thought that's really cool to be able to see that, at least in the tour style. But I feel like a lot of these guys, very similar to like how you play, you're very in your own element because it's so individualized, and you don't really want to be bothered when you're on a hot streak. So it's one of those things where again you're seeing them in a new, fascinating way. There are some things I think that worked really well compared to LIV, and I think for at least my friends, they were one thing I liked about LIV was the team aspect, but I didn't like how I didn't know who I necessarily wanted to root for. Whereas I'm rooting for the New York team. I get to lay a stake to my city or my region, right? Guys in San Francisco, guys down in Florida, in the Jupiter area, Atlanta, so on, Boston. And now that they're looking to expand further, Southern California, looking to expand to Las Vegas, possibly other places like that, Scottsdale. So you can lay a stake to your own place. The format's really cool. The 3-man alt shot for 6 holes and then one-on-one matchups. It kind of gives you a Ryder Cup feeling, but just in terms of the actual matchup style and the way that's portrayed. And you could do it all in a pretty quick period of time. I think the 2 hours is the most important thing. Ethan made a great point. We're in baseball. We're trying to shorten the game to 2.5 hours. We're trying to find ways to make the NBA faster, to make the NFL faster. We're trying to find ways to lessen the schedule in baseball because people don't want to watch from April to October. I think having a shot clock is amazing. And when asked afterwards, Ricky Fowler and Matt Fitzpatrick, they were like, what one rule would correlate really well to the traditional format? And they immediately said shot clock. If we could implement the true 40-second shot clock and not it be an arbitrary thing where there is no set, whereas obviously the 40-second clock technically exists on the PGA Tour, but no one enforces it. If we can actually make it enforceable and hold you to it, the game will go so much faster and smoother. And the guys were all about it and they loved it. And Ricky Fowler was most of your pre-shot can be done before you even step up. And he's like, why can't guys on tour do that? It doesn't. And he kind of made a joke, but he's friendly with them, so it wasn't a Schneid thing. He was like, Brian Harmon wants to take 30 waggles. He could do it before he shoots, off the bag as somebody else is firing. That's one of those things that we've talked about ad nauseum. How can you possibly? You have to be able to hold this up, and no one does. That's the beauty of what the TGL brings, and I think there's a lot of forward momentum for it. If the viewership stays up, maybe that's great. Maybe it was just a week 1 thing. We'll see how things go tomorrow. But for 990 views compared to, and again, it's different because it's a Tuesday in prime time versus a Sunday evening. The Century, yes, 2 weeks ago, last week on Sunday, only got about 430,000 viewers. Whereas 2 years ago, when John Rahm and Cam Smith were fighting for the same crown that Hideki Matsuyama went for, it was over 700. So I think that right there just shows you enough of what the TGL could bring. And if there's further expansion and further interest from NBA and NFL ownership, which there apparently is, and further expansion happening, that's only going to make the product even better.
No, I agree. I think that, I what you're saying, is the overall viewership sustainable? Only time will tell.
Yeah.
Because I think that there was a lot of intrigue because no one's ever really seen golf done like this. I think this is actually a very good insight as to what like a typical. Now I know that they're teams of 3, yes, but like players will go out on off weeks or in the off season. They'll do 2-on-2 matches.
Yeah.
And they'll do they'll go out, they'll do gimmies, they'll kind of do whatever, they'll joke around. It's not that serious, and there's money exchanged, a lot of money exchanged sometimes. And I think you're able to see more of the personality. I think, and you brought up Full Swing. I think Full Swing brought to light the personalities of golf. It brought to light the personalities in golf, but it was so serious.
Yeah.
Like I only watched the first season of it, and I got annoyed because, number one, I thought it was too much of the actual media members and not the players.
Yeah.
I don't need to be constantly reminded. Like, we get it. This is episode 6. These guys missed the cut. They don't get paid. This is episode 6. You showed us the same clip of these talking heads saying this. Get it. And I felt like from the player's perspective, looking at it from the player's perspective, it was just so serious. Like with Keegan when he didn't make a round cut, with Brooks when he was constantly trying a swing, and seeing those putts at medalist. Really the only, even with like Mito Pereira, I think his last name is, the first thing that they brought up was how he kind of blew the PGA Championship. It was really kind of a lot of depressing stuff, whereas I think this was much more positive and much more fun, and that's what people want to see. It's kind of like baseball. Like, baseball is way more fun when guys are having fun, right? Like, it's more fun when guys are pimping home runs and fist pumping when they walk off the mound after their 9th strikeout. Football, it's the same thing. Football's more fun when you have, back in the day when Antonio Brown was twerking in the end zone. Obviously, yes, we're not going to see that. But when sports are fun and athletes are smiling and they're joking around, that's the best. That's what makes sport very relatable for just your average, everyday, hardworking person, who plays golf once a week,
Yeah, and I think you also bring up a compelling point too. Think of it in the traditional aspect, right? The waste management, when 2-3 years ago, Harry Higgs pulls his shirt off, and so does Joel Damon, and they're running around on the green in the stadium hole. Yes, people criticize it because there's 250,000 drunk schmucks running around the parcel of land in Scottsdale, and the frat parties are happening all around there. But at the same time, it's the more fun atmosphere, and it's what people remember. I feel like for pro players, they get so caught up and wrapped up in the heartbeat of the game, and even for example, yesterday we watched Nick Taylor and Nico Echeverria, two guys who Nico has a couple of I think 1 or 2 tour wins under his belt. Both came, one at the Zozo this past fall, but the other one came out in Puerto Rico or Punta Cana. Didn't really have a large crowd on hand to watch him. Same thing in Japan. Versus Nick Taylor, who as of the most recent has won the Canadian Open and won the Waste Management. These two guys still looking for their third win apiece in the last however many months. Very serious. Nico was gut wrenched when he missed his approach shot on the second playoff hole, and you couldn't get a reaction out of him that was fun, because he was wow, shit, I just lost out on $1.5 million and a possible win. Like, it's a huge loss. It's nice to be able to see guys who, let's be honest, are probably not making a ton of money off of this. And it's one time every 2 weeks that you get to see them in Palm Beach, Florida. Like, they're there to relax, have fun. For the most part, a lot of those guys live out there anyways. So it's not like it's not a huge toll on anybody to have to go out and do that. I think at the end of the day, they enjoy it, which is really the most important thing. And it allows for that better understanding of the pro golfer when you can do that. And again, the expansion is only going to make it better, because now, instead of having just the 24 guys that you have now, you're going to be able to add on a plethora of players who you don't even hear that much of, even when they are top players. There's a lot of guys who are really good golfers who aren't a part of the TGL yet. So it's only going to get better as we go on.
I completely agree. And, look, time will tell with the ratings, what those do. But I think based on the initial draw, based on how much personality you saw and how it reaches a different group of casual golf fans who are into more excitement than just snooze fest TV. Like, even Tiger Woods said a long time ago, he's like, when I watch golf, I don't have the volume on. Like, the announcing doesn't help. The Jim cannot do every single tournament. It's got to be a lot better, but he can't. And so I really do think that those 3 factors or 4 factors, however many I just listed, I think that will help this actually be sustainable and much more watchable for your average golf fan.
Exactly. Plus, also, not to mention, and this is my last point, it also can bring in a wave of different, like, fun new ways to make golf more interesting. I follow, we had him on the show months ago, Golf Project, Raymond Williams. He was like, they walk out of a tunnel. Like, they can have personality and they can have their own music, and it's the first time outside of, like, the Zurich Classic when teams, like, walk out and they have, like, a song play on the first tee, that they could show more personality. Imagine, like, Ricky Fowler strolling out to Waka Flocka, or like whatever dumb shit these guys want to do. We can now turn, like, how the NBA has made an entire subcategory of NBA content out of just, like, what the guys wear walking through like the tunnel. Like, we could see the exact same thing now, but on a golf scale, and it only adds more excitement to the sport at large, and what could provide for the future of golf that we can't necessarily get during a 7-hour broadcast over the weekend, when, let's be honest, most people probably really aren't watching. And again, the best part of all this, the largest part of the audience was ESPN Plus. For a long time, we've struggled a lot with NBC being behind a paywall. You could only watch from 3 to 7 on Sundays. A lot of content was always pay to watch. It helps in the era of streaming now that everyone's buying it. But the fact that we're getting more streams available to it might make golf, even the traditional format, more accessible, because people are now buying more into the streaming platforms. So there you have it. Let's get into some shout-outs of the week before we head to break. Brought to you by our friends over at Acorn Hills, changing clothing through conservation and bringing you the best golf apparel out there. Spring, believe it or not, is just around the corner. It might seem far away, but I guarantee you it is a lot closer than you think. And you can get going with your Acorn Hills apparel, from polos to hats to ball markers and quarter zips. They are dedicated to supporting environmental efforts by offering biodegradable clothing tags, packaging, recycled materials, and for every dollar spent, the National Forest Foundation will plant a seedling to promote afforestation across our great land. Be sure to use code GITH15 for 15% off your next order at acornhillsco.com, and look your best from the ground up. We start off with a big congrats to Nick Taylor, his huge win, getting his 3rd win in the last 18 months at the Sony Open in playoff fashion. Listen to this. 3 straight wins for Nick Taylor have all come in playoffs. He won the RBC Canadian Open. If you remember when he won that was when Adam Hadwin got open field tackled by a security guard. He won the Waste Management last year and has now captured the Sony Open in a playoff format. Second hole, nails the birdie putt. Actually got into the playoff against Nico Echeverria. They were the second to last group going into Sunday, with Steven Yeager and Eric Cole up front. Cole and Jaeger both missed their par putts to get into the playoff. Nico and Taylor get in. Nick Taylor got into the playoff. He went long off the green on 18, needed a chip in from about 16 feet to make it, and drilled it for eagle to make the playoffs. So huge shout out to Nick Taylor. Third win in the last 18 months. And of course, to Nico Echeverria as well. A great effort from them. A lot of really good movement that this past week at Wiley Country Club, including Keegan Bradley, who also sported a brand new mustache. He looks like a firehouse captain now. Lots of really good movement from a lot of guys. But to you, Nick Taylor, great job on a gutsy win.
Yeah, now to more of the YouTube golf front. Shout out to Grant Horvat and the Bryan Bros. This weekend, Grant celebrated celebrated reaching 1 million subscribers on YouTube, which is just incredible. Because he basically started from scratch when he left good.
Mm-hmm.
Both Horvat and the Bryan Bros signed equity deals with Tacoma Golf this past week, the first of its kind in the golf content community. You know, the Bryan Bros have actually been using Tacoma. They used them all last year.
Mm-hmm.
At least I know Wesley did, and I think George probably did too, because initially they were Callaway guys, and then obviously these deals have expiration dates and everything, and Wesley ended up going. I knew for a fact Wesley was using their irons for sure. And Wesley did have a lot of success this year, and I think that definitely helped Tacoma in a big way. And so the fact that both of those accounts, those three guys, the Bryan Bros being the two brothers and Grant, have such large followings, I think that this is a win-win for both parties involved. I really do. I think any time that you have, it's kind of like Tacoma has a little bit of a PXG feel because it is a newer company. Not many people know about it. So I think this is a win-win for both parties, honestly. And from what I've heard, they're great clubs. Wesley had a lot of success with them. George has had success with them as well. I mean, he's kind of back in the competitive fold, doing Q School the last 2 years. So yeah, that's awesome. But big shout out to Grant for 1 million subscribers. That's really impressive because, like I said, he started from zero. He did. Good. I remember. I think they gave him an offer, and he said no, and he bet on himself. And shout out. That's a lot of respect there.
Yeah, what's honestly awesome about this too, I know like in the past we've seen TaylorMade sponsored with Barstool Sports. We saw Callaway is with Good, but this move is not only really good for the content creators at large, but again, like Grant had just made the move over from TaylorMade to Tacoma, and his deal came with it. And then of course, as you said, the Bryan Bros had been using them for a while. Like for what it's worth, these like bespoke golf companies are starting to pop up more and more. We've seen Scotty Scheffler, Nelly Korda, and a few others are now sporting like a new bespoke putter brand called Olsen, kind of like an offshoot rival almost at this point to Scotty Cameron. Not quite at the level, but obviously a very new brand. Tacoma, kind of like Miura, if you're familiar with those. Tacoma, actually a Scandinavian golf brand. I'm like on their website right now. You can literally get a set of player distance irons for starting at $600 for an iron set, which is like a really sick value for an off the rack golf set that for a starting golfer is honestly tremendous. There aren't really many brands that you could find a brand new golf set off the rack for that kind of money. Maybe like at Costco, I've seen like the Callaway Edge sets, which are like very, very starter clubs. Those are like probably $500, and I don't think they come with every iron. I think it's like a 5, a 7, a 9, a P wedge, a sand wedge, and then a putter and a driver. So like the fact that you can get a full iron set for $600, you can get a driver for about $150. It's a really good lean in for both these guys, and it's only showing that the content space is getting even more looks into golf and is getting more eyeballs interested in it. And similar to the TGL, it's just another avenue to get more people get more casuals into the game of golf, which I think is absolutely awesome. Some birthday shout outs this week. First off, we got to give a large shout 1998 Masters winner Mark O'Meara. Today he turned 68 years old. So shout out to Mark on his big 68th birthday. He's 1 year away from the best birthday of them all. Other birthdays this week include Kurt Kitayama, Luke List, Jack Nicklaus' son Gary, Jimmy Walker, and Brian Harmon will celebrate his birthday on Sunday, as he is hopefully going to make the cut at La Quinta and the AMEX. So we'll see, hopefully, Brian Harmon on Sunday, and he might be making an appearance on my betting platforms if we end up getting him there. We're going to take a short break. On the other side, we're going to jump right into some LIVGolf news regarding their upcoming season, and we might be seeing a slowdown in their overall numbers. We'll get more into that, as well as a preview of the AMEX and, of course, our beer money picks of the week. Don't go anywhere. For Ethan and Ben, I'm Steve McAvoy. We'll be right back. Welcome back into Get in the Hole here. Ben, Steve, and Ethan joining you. Ben, we got some news on the LIVGolf front and might be seeing the first signs of slowdown from the startup. So over the last 6 months, we've already reviewed in terms of what LIVGolf is going through. They introduced the drop zone and the lock zone and all these different things, relegation. They had their promotions tour. And while we spent the last probably about a month looking at who might be jumping to LIVGolf ahead of the opening of the season, there was rumors that Tony Finau was going to go, Victor Hovland was going to go, Hideki Matsuyama, the same kind of figures who have been popping up. They did end up signing on about 7 or 8 new players, including some returners, including Bubba Watson and Brandon Grace, onto their teams. But I think what's interesting is that we might be seeing a slowdown in their overall get in the golf game. Few names that have been added to LIVGolf rosters this year include Ben Campbell, the Australian. He goes to join the Range Goats alongside Bubba Watson, who's back as their captain after getting demoted from the tour. He got re-signed by the Range Goats as a quote-unquote business decision. They also add on Yubin Jang. We mentioned him a few weeks ago, the Kevin Na product, to the Ironheads, one of the best Korean amateurs in the world, as well as Frederick Ketterup from joining the Cliques. Lee Shen-po, who actually won the promotions tour, he's unconfirmed where he'll be joining. And Luis Masavu will be joining the Fireballs over Eugenio Chacara this year with Sergio Garcia. But with all those names coming in, we didn't get the big names that people were expecting or hoping for. But we did see a large influx of very young talent, former top amateurs in the world, some guys who have been at big-time college programs and are now jumping over, as we've seen in the past, like David Pui and other guys. Do you foresee any big names jumping to LIV, or are we finally seeing the slowdown or the consolidation of talent and the step away from trying to get big-time names with big-time cash?
Well, I mean, I think at this point now, you've seen pretty much all the big-time names that you're going to see leave. I think it's pretty clear. I think initially, while it made them appealing, a lot of the guys that they initially brought in were old and past their prime, and really were not that good anymore. And then they had guys come in like Cam Smith, Rahm, guys, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Bryson. And while I do think those guys did help move the needle for them a little bit, just because they're so important to the game, they were so important to the PGA Tour. Some of them were very outspoken. I do think now with the lack of big names, I mean, like Bubba Watson going back, like Bubba Watson is based on his last year has no business being on LIV. I mean, wasn't he one of the worst players on LIV last year?
I think he was the worst.
Yeah, he was worse than, and look, I love Anthony Kim. He was worse than Anthony Kim, who took a dozen years off.
12 years off.
Like, he has no business, and like I don't know, like I do think that this might be a little bit of a pivot in the strategy. Like, you know what, we have our big names, which is important. They do have their big names still. Let's try to surround those bigger names with some young talent no one really knows much about. We'll keep them from the PGA Tour, and we can showcase them on platform. Do they have much of a platform? Not really, for being completely honest. But I do think it appears that there is a little bit of a shift in the philosophy of their signings. I think really the only name I can truly think of would be Victor Hovland leaving, and that's just because he's been linked to them for so long. But at this point, like, if it hasn't happened now, is it ever going to happen? Probably not. So I think that this is kind of it. I think LIV is like, we've got our big stars, and now we're just gonna as some guys end up leaving because they're not effective enough, we're gonna bring in these younger guys and keep them away from the PGA Tour or the DP World Tour.
Yeah, no, I think what's fascinating about all of this too, and the only very recently has this kind of come to light, and we've learned more about it. Two names in particular have come out and have said that basically, when being recruited to LIVGolf, those two names being Carlos Ortiz, who we already know, and the aforementioned Eugenio Chacarra, who I'll mention in a bit. But both of them said that essentially to get them to join LIVGolf, they were basically lied to, and they were given the promises of world golf rankings points and major access, and they just simply never got it. And whether that was Greg Norman trying to just give empty promises to hopefully one day get it, or if that was something that they thought they wouldn't have a hiccup with, is to be seen. But in terms of Carlos Ortiz, like, I think you and I had mentioned it, like in private, his agent didn't even like tell him about it. It was basically like, oh yeah, like you're gonna go and do this, and he kind of got screwed over by the system trying to just get his bag and whatnot. And then in the case of Eugenio Chacarra, more news actually just came out today. Last night, I read an article about how he, after 3 years playing for the Fireballs and Sergio Garcia, he was the number 2 amateur in the world in 2022. Was in the class with Ludwig Oberg at PGAU. He was a 4-year standout at Oklahoma State. He was actually going to be one of the guys to earn a PGA Tour card through PGAU, and ended up opting to go to LIVGolf instead, with the promise of OWGR points and access to majors and an opportunity to grow his career. And now, after 3 years, he was dropped from the team. He performed well. He performed decently. He won his 5th ever start out in Bangkok, but for some reason just had differences within his contract and has left the team. Is now going to be playing in an Asian circuit event in a couple of weeks. Tried to apply to go to Q school, and they were like, well, you played on LIV, like you can't come to Q school. And he came out today with the interview and was like, I was lied to. I feel betrayed by LIVGolf. And while it's great that I made a lot of money because I got automatic starts, and when I won big, I didn't get any sort of appreciation or any sort of I didn't feel successful despite winning. And he compared himself to his fellow PGAU standout Ludwig Oberg, and he was like, in 12 months, Ludwig Oberg almost won a major, made a Ryder Cup, won an event, and everyone talked about him. And he goes, I won an event a year before him, and no one talked about me. And he was like, at LIVGolf, there's no reputation and no recognition. It's all just money. And you almost feel like a pawn, kind of like in the machine. And I found his comments really interesting because we haven't seen this yet from anybody. It was, for the longest time, the older players who come in, they already know they're over the hill, so they go to LIV to make their money. But then also they've had guys like David Pui. They have guys, I'm like going through the roster now. Junichiro Kozuma, who's a top player in Japan from a while back. Like, there are young athletes that are coming in. Caleb Surratt from Tennessee, who left after their sophomore year to go pro, who are told, hey, you're going to be the next guy on LIVGolf, and you're going to develop and grow. And they kind of just fade into existence. Think about it. We see the majors, 4 majors every year. There are some guys who, honestly, prior to me looking at the roster list, I was like, wow, I forgot they even went to LIV. I could have thought they would have retired. Guys like Abe Answer stands out, who was a PGA Tour staple for Mexico 2 years ago. Paul Casey, another name. Charles Howell, Taylor Gooch. Tyrrell Hatton is a more recent name, but outside of Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, Dustin Johnson, and I said Bryson, yeah, like Koepka, Bryson, DJ. There's a lot of names like Jason Kokrak, even Anirban Lahiri, Mark Leishman, even Adrian Moronk, who was a top 20 golfer as of 6 months ago before he left, have kind of just faded into existence, and you've almost never heard from them again. And I think what Shakara is saying is fascinating because it's the first time that the young talent is starting to say this. And now with Live Golf possibly trying to shift away from older players or top tier talent and trying to lure them with big money, they're trying to now lure college kids who could be the farm system and the new growth basis for Live Golf. Maybe this is a sign that a lot of them aren't going to want to go, and it might show a complete fall off for Live Golf in years to come if the goal was to have a promotions tour and now no one's trying to play in it.
You know, I've always said to people, if you know, Live is basically, it's like they're giving you $40 million a year, just go away and disappear. So that's really what it is. You never hear about these guys unless it's like a handful of guys who you know are never going to miss majors, right? And it's just like there are guys who, like Paul Casey was a great player on the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour. He was great. One of the most underrated careers really in golf history. I mean, the guy reached third in the world twice, I believe. You're never going to see him play in another major. And like, that's wild to me. I mean, and he's like, I know he's in his 40s now. He takes such good care of himself. He would have been just, I mean, the guy, he battled some injuries in like the early 2010s. I mean, he was such an effective tour player and he always took such good care of himself. I mean, he would have been effective until he was 46, 47 on tour. I truly believe that. You know, you have these other guys who it's just like, yeah, like they were very good on the PGA Tour and they won events and they were probably like in like a class B, right? Like, you know, like there's, you know, class A, it's probably, you know, it's like the Xanders and the Brookses and the Brysons and the Scotties and everything. And then underneath that, you have like the Abraham Answers, the Paul Caseys, the Tyrrell Hatton kind of would fluctuate between A and B maybe, you know, but I think now it's just like, I'm not going to say it's where golfers go to die because like people said about the Jets. It's like the Jets is where the Jets, it's like, that's where quarterbacks go to die. Like, or like the Browns, you know, like where quarterbacks go to die. I think it's really where golfers kind of go to disappear.
Yeah.
That's kind of
like,
what happens.
Think about it, right?
It's pretty obvious because I thought Liv would have been much further along. I had my own concerns. From a viewer's perspective, I had my own concerns. Not a real TV deal. The format of like, you know, a shotgun format. I think that there were some things that were interesting. I think one thing though that you need to understand, we talked about this a couple episodes ago with that Blade Barnes, it was his name.
Yeah.
We talked about development and why I think it was so important for Blade or Blades, whatever. I forget.
Blades Brown, yes.
Blades Brown. Okay. Why it was such a good move for him to not go to college because he's going to be able to play more right away. Okay. On Liv, they're going after these younger guys. They're not going to get to play that much in the grand scheme of things, right? And so they're only playing roughly a dozen events, a little over a dozen events a year, 3 rounds, not 4. So the development isn't going to quite be there for them because the most important thing, in my opinion, when you first get to college is to play as much as you can. And then once you kind of figure things out, you kind of find your niche thing, what's most important to you. These kids aren't really going to get that many playing opportunities. And yes, they can go play in the Asian Tour. I can assure you, in like an off week, no one wants to go to Asia to play.
Yeah.
That is a haul. Okay? Trust me. Like, they would much rather probably stay in the States and play Corn Ferry events or play PGA Tour events. But if you go to live, you don't have that luxury. So I do think the development factor, and I'm sure they're thinking about this, I'm sure their coaches are probably telling them this. Hey, you're going to get the bag, but you're not going to develop maybe as quickly or as well as you would like because you're not going to get to play that much.
Yeah.
Because of just how it is. I mean, I remember like I never really noticed this. Like I knew I knew the live schedule, but just seeing it on a piece of paper or just seeing it on Instagram, it's light. Like there's not a whole hell of a lot going on. Like they don't play that much. I was like, Tim, like there's like no events. But it's just their typical like 14 events or whatever it is. But
And
like you look at it and then you realize like, holy shit, like this is not a lot of play. And then on top of that, you got these kids who need to develop, and the only way you can develop is if you play. Well, they don't have those opportunities. And they're worried about development, which they should be. I think it really just comes down to what's more important to these kids, being set up financially for a really like a long time or for life, or developing your golf game. I think that that's a gamble, and there's an opportunity cost with each scenario.
which actually, like, it's funny. Two things. One, you bring up like development. These guys were also promised like 8 events a year, and then you'd play the 4 majors once you qualified for it, as their promise, right? 12 events. The schedule is now up to 14 events on top of the 4 majors you'd play. If Bryson DeChambeau plays every single week, which he will end up playing all 4 majors now that is won the U.S. Open, Bryson DeChambeau is going to play as much, if not more, on LIVGolf than he ever has in a PGA Tour season. Those guys only really play 14, 15 times a year, including the majors. Now he's going to play a full 14 weeks late, granted weeks on, weeks off, but you were promised less golf. You're going to be playing almost as much golf when you really think about it, just from a days on course perspective. On top of that, you had said like, yeah, like places like the place where golfers go to disappear and kind of, you could almost say die, with the exception of Brooks Koepka's ability to stay relevant in majors, as well as Bryson's, but he also has his content angle, which is a little bit different. Dustin Johnson has sort of just faded out of the public eye. He hasn't contended for a major in 3 years. Patrick Reed, outside of the Masters for the first 2 rounds, has also faded out completely. If I told you right now, did you know that Jason Kokrak was playing LIVGolf? You probably would be like, wow, really?
Well, I mean, I would know just because
Yeah, you know what I mean. But like Martin Kamer, Matt Jones, Matt Jones, like even Mark Leishman, right? For years, Mark Leishman is the B to Cam Smith's A, no longer there. Harold Varner, Sebastian Munoz, Mito Pereira. Like there's very few names that stand out on this list. Pat Perez, God, there's so many of them. Charles Schwartzel, Henrik Stenson, Hudson Swafford was the last rated live golfer this year. Like that's a name that I'm like, wow, he won the AMEX 3 years ago. Hudson Swafford, and now he is a wild card player for LIVGolf. Like the fact that there are guys, Cameron Tringale as well, you simply don't hear from them at all, and they can't qualify for majors, and they're not getting points. And truly, this is the slowdown. And I can go as far as saying that if younger golfers with like following what Shakar is saying and are in college and are saying, hey, like I can either go on to LIVGolf and I can be set forever, or I can go to play the pros. And the biggest thing about Shakar's point that I really thought was interesting was he said, in comparison to Ludwig Oberg, he said, I could be as good as Ludwig Oberg could be. And we each have one win. I have a win on LIV. He has a win on the PGA Tour in essentially an opposite field event because it happened in the fall. But like, I didn't get any sort of recognition, or I was an afterthought after my win in Bangkok, as opposed to Ludwig's at the RSM, and it launched him to a new level where now he's the 6th ranked golfer in the world. If younger golfers that are 22, 23 that are about to leave college are looking at this guy and saying, well, like David Puig was a top 3 amateur in the world, and Chikara was number 2 in the world, and they've kind of just like totally fell off after going to LIV. don't you kind of want rich and fame? Don't you want to be seen in the newspaper and interviewed on Golf Channel? Like, yeah, cool. LIVGolf is going to be getting a TV deal with Fox, possibly, but what's that going to bring in the grand scheme? Like, the CW is already a big enough television program. They didn't grow at all from that. I think that this could very well, I can go as far as saying this could be the beginning of the end for LIVGolf if they can't hold on to players and try and get better new talent to come in. Like, Yubin Zhang is a very interesting field study, right? Top amateur in the world, comes from Korea, didn't go to college, played golf, technically professionally, in Korea for the last 2 years. But, like, what's his development going to be like? Like you're saying, it's a complete question mark. And if LIV isn't going to be able to bring on these big time names, they can't get guys to join their promotions tour, and guys are going to opt more for Q School and the Korn Ferry Tour if they can get onto it. Also, knowing that a guy like Shikara was literally denied from Q School because they were like, well, you play for LIV. So this last month he couldn't play. He was like, well, shit, here I am. So it's a very interesting predicament that we finally see LIVGolf in, and it's the first time we've seen a younger player like this say anything, because truly they are the ones that are getting the most affected. They were promised all these things and for nothing. So
only time will tell.
Only time will tell. That's it. Let's get on to a preview of the AMEX this week. Few notes on the field before we get into beer money and we wrap up. Jordan Spieth officially out this week. He had confirmed earlier in the week that he will tee it up for the first time at the AT&T Pebble Beach after successfully undergoing surgery, as well as Scotty Scheffler. He was due back this week. He will take another week off and tee it up either the following week at the Farmers, or he will be at the Pebble Beach as well. Denny McCarthy not in the field this week. He is a WD this week. I'm pulling up the rest of the withdrawals from the event. One moment, please. Denny McCarthy's out. He'll be replaced by Aaron Baddeley, as well as Xander Schauffele is officially withdrawn from the event. He will be replaced by Philip Knowles. So those are your field updates going into the week. If you're looking for an update on what to expect at the AMEX that tees off, I believe, Wednesday. It's one of the rare events that tees off the week, a day before, right? I want to say that I'm right. Yes, tees off on Wednesday this week, so a short week as the football playoffs rouse on. No, sorry, they are teeing off on Thursday. I apologize. Usually it's the week before. I think it's because they removed a week, so this is moved the week up. I think it's next week. That's an early week. Anyhow, you can go to our previous episode from last year to get more on what to expect from La Quinta Country Club, as well as the other courses they will be playing at the AMEX. One question before we get into beer money. Following an unprecedented win last year from Nick Dunlap, any name really low on the odds board, really young players in the field this week to possibly look out for that could have a week like Nick Dunlap?
Play my odds boards real quick. Or the odds boards, they're not mine. Oh God, really low odds boards. We're going in pretty deep here. Geez, you could look at someone like Taylor Moore plus 15,000. Is that enough? Or do you want someone lower?
No, that's actually exactly what I'm looking for.
That's as low as you can go. I mean, geez, you could. I mean, there are some interesting names here. I mean, Mark Hubbard at plus. I could see Mark Hubbard having a good week. I mean, he did almost win an elevated event last year. He's at plus 12,000. I mean, my goodness. The challenge with this event is that they have to play 3 courses. Like, that's a lot of preparation, especially if you're coming from Hawaii. It's not easy. I mean, geez, like, if you want someone who's Jesper Svensson, I know that name. I played against that guy in college. Pretty sure he played for Campbell University. Look it up. Intern, please fix. Intern.
You actually mentioned him already. In the field this week on a sponsor exemption is both Wesley Bryan and Blades Brown. So we'll be able to see the first from the young 17-year-old. We'll see how he fares. Who knows? Look, Nick Dunlap won it as a 19-year-old. I wouldn't be surprised if for some reason Blades Brown comes out and just absolutely dominates the field on a beginner's luck, I guess you could say. Maybe the sponsor exemptions have a little bit of interesting juice. Zach Johnson, Ches Reavie, Chesson Hadley, Kevin Streelman. There is one PGA section champion, Kyle Mendoza. He's a 15-year golf pro out in the area. So a lot of interesting names to come through at this event, but no real amateurs in the field, I don't believe, according to what the field list says. There are though. Harry Higgs is involved this week. Frankie Capon, a new member of the PGA Tour. So lots of fun names coming into the event. As Ethan, do you have that update?
Is it Jimmy Gerken?
No, I asked you to look up Jesper Svensson or Jesper Svensson.
Jesper Svensson.
I can't.
This man's internet is like worse than like anything on earth.
Wait, what was it?
Thing ever. I think it's
Jesper Svensson.
Jesper Svensson.
Yeah, that's right. We played against
dude. This man's internet is fucking bonkers. Do you know that there's actually a Jesper Svensson? This is actually crazy. The Jesper Svensson that you know was born March 14th, 1996. There is a Jesper Svensson Swedish bowler who was born an exact year and 1 month before him. That's crazy.
I don't care about that. That kid's a fucking stud. So that's someone I would look into for sure. That and Jackson Suber. We played junior golf against each other in Florida.
Svensson actually makes the field as a top 10 from the prior year's DP World Tour, so he gets in on an exemption as well. With that, has been
finished top 10 last week.
Ben's internet is just gone.
He finished top 10 last week.
Still can't understand him.
Jesus.
What'd you say, Ben?
He finished top 10 last week.
Thank you.
There we go.
Yeah, he finished top 10 last week. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Let's get into some beer money brought to you by our boys over at Kenwood Beer. I really wanted the Packers this past weekend over the Eagles, but Jordan Love just obliterated my my sports book. While the Eagles move on to past wild card weekend, you can check out the Eagles and the crumbling Philadelphia 76ers, all while crushing some refreshing Kenwood beer. Only 120 calories, 8 grams of carbs. Some call it the best light beer they've ever had. We just say you can't beat the original. He's the routine choice of folks who want a balanced, flavorful, no-frills beer that's just right for any sports watching occasion or golf watching occasion or playing occasion. Head to kenwoodbeer.com. Use the Kenny Tracker to find where you can get your hands on some ice-cold, refreshing Kenwood beer from your favorite liquor stores in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland. Now available in Delaware as well as the Wells Fargo Center and beyond. And be sure to get your hands on the new Kenwood golf glasses. Absolutely sick glasses at only a fraction of the price that you might find somewhere else, and only at kenwoodbeer.com. Must be 21 plus to do so. And of course, please drink responsibly. Ben, hopefully your internet doesn't fail us in this last segment. Top 20 pick at the AMEX. Who you got?
All right, so my top 20 pick. Okay.
Feet don't fail me now.
Shut up. You know what? I'm gonna go with my typical bet right here. You know, no, screw that. I'm making a late substitution. Give me Tom Hoagie for a top 20 finish.
So Ben's taking intern's uncle, Tom Hoagie.
Fuck
Ethan
yeah,
Hogan,
yeah.
Tom Hoagie, shaking of the hands. I dig it. I'm going to go for a top 20. The reigning champion of the event, Nick Dunlap, sitting at a plus 200. He won the event somehow in his first PGA Tour start. Technically like a third, but he managed to win here almost on a whim. I think he may have the course knowledge to be able to get him over the hump this time. And the conditions look very similar to last year. So I'll take Dunlap at plus 200 for a top 20. Top 10, who you got?
Oh gosh, see, this is where I kind of with all the WDs, this kind of became a little bit harder for me because I want someone with value.
Should I just lock in Adam Hadwin somewhere in this?
No, I was actually thinking about taking him for my top 20, but I didn't do it.
Adam Hadwin is the most Ben Pirro bet of all time.
No. That or Sam Ryder for top 20.
That
like
a broken record.
That being said, before I was so rudely interrupted, I'm going to go with JJ Spawn for a top 10 finish.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. JJ Spawn, top 10 for you. At plus 225, I'm going to go with Tony Finau making his season debut. He missed out on the Hero World Challenge. He missed out on the Century. We don't really know what for, but he is back and ready to ball this week at the AMEX plus 225 for the Big Tony, the Tiger Finau. Top 5. Who's your pick?
Oh boy, I'm going to go with Sam Burns for my top 5 finish.
Big pick from Sam Burns. Believe it or not, actually, I think I found it really interesting. Sam Burns is rated on the Data Golf world rankings lower than a lot of guys who I thought he would actually be rated ahead of. Believe it or not, I was looking at it earlier, and they have him listed below, actually for some reason Tyrrell Hatton is still 7th in the Data Golf world rankings. That's crazy. Anyhow, top 5 for me. It hasn't gotten off to the best of starts early in years, but he's always managed to kind of pull out late. This is a big year for him. I think Tom Kim is a smash this year to go on a masterful run, as of course had plenty of wins in the fall series at the now dead Shriners Open. But I think Tom Kim's got a really good shot here at an event that, while it hasn't necessarily been the most kind to him personally, he does have a lot of success on golf courses that are very similar to this kind of layout, particularly at La Quinta. I think Tom Kim for a top 5 and a really good money at plus 550. I think is a home run here for a top 5. Your gimme pick this week.
Speaking of Adam Hadwin, top 25 for Adam Hadwin. Fun fact, he shot 59 in this tournament. So you can laugh all you want, Steve. This guy's a stud, especially at this tournament. Top 25, Mr. Adam Hadwin.
I like that. I was looking at the leaderboard at the Sony, and I watched a little bit on Saturday, and I was shocked to find this guy towards the top of the leaderboard. And I said, wait a minute. I saw him towards the top last week. Maybe it was Hawaii. I don't know. I might very well get shot in the foot with this pick. But back-to-back weeks in the top 10, the only player on the PGA Tour to finish in the top 10 back-to-back weeks to begin the year, Harry Hall for a top 20 finish at plus 180. Again, you finish top 10 in back-to-back events. A very wide open kind of golf course and a very narrow golf course at Wailea. I think you kind of put it all together and you go to California. Short little flight, big week again for Harry Hall. Your winner of the AMEX is who?
Give me Justin Thomas plus 1,200.
JT. Who finished runner-up at the AMEX last year? It was Davis Thompson. I thought it was Justin Thomas. It was a different Thomas. All right, sweet. So you're going JT. I'm going to go a little outside the box with my pick. Where did he finish here last year? He finished 22nd last year. however, does have good history at this golf course. I'm going to go plus 3,500 with Siwoo Kim to lay stake and be the first Korean to get a big-time win at the AMEX in 2025. I'm feeling pretty good about that pick. Also, I was wrong when I looked up the 2023 AMEX result. Christian Bezadenhout was the one who lost to Nick Dunlap. And then it was Schauffele and JT finished T3. All right, so I was close there. Ben, any final thoughts before we go, if your Wi-Fi can handle it?
Wait, so who's your pick?
Siwoo Kim.
Okay. I completely missed that. That's a good pick.
It's because you're busy downloading some illicit content right now.
Shut the fuck up. I don't do that. That was insulting. Apologize.
I'm sorry, Ben.
That's better. Never say it to me again. Regardless, it was a fun show. I apologize. What?
He's so demanding, isn't he? Ethan just smiles in the corner.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, I love Ethan. I hate you, Ben, but I love Ethan. Ben, final thoughts? Anything?
We can't see it, but he's crying right now.
Probably, yeah. It's blurred out a little too heavily. It's okay. We'll make up for it on the back.
I'm going to purposely sabotage whatever is remaining in your golf swing, saying that I'm demanding.
And on that note, I'm going to Tony Reale mute Ben's mic. That's been episode 187 of the Get in the Hole podcast from the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe to all of our social media platforms at Get in the Hole Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and of course at Underground Sports PHI on YouTube. Continue to climb that follower rating, leave a comment, subscribe, and be sure to check out all Underground Sports content. Anything you're looking for, from soccer to F1 racing, the new rebrand for Underground F1 now off and running. And of course, all your content here can be found on YouTube. And of course, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Be sure to leave a comment, 5-star rating, comment on our polls every single week. The engagement really helps the overall platform. For our good intern, Ethan, that's Ben Pirro. I'm Steve McAvoy. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the golf. Thanks for listening to Get in the Hole, the official golf podcast of Underground Sports Philadelphia. Catch us every week wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and be sure to like and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Get in the Hole Pod, and follow Underground Sports Philadelphia at Underground PHI. We'll see you next time. And remember, get in the hole!